Erin. Welcome to my podcast.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
So, I came to invite you to talk about today's topic, which is toxic productivity. I thought that you would be a suitable candidate for coffee and conversation because because I know that you do a lot of things in terms of work, like just projects, but also like you're very productive in terms of your education aspect and other things. Like you're very sporty and very talented in art. If
Thank you.
go check her Instagram, it's on her bio. Check it out. So I feel like I spill too much about you, but I want to talk a little bit about you first before we dive into the topic of toxic productivity. Would you like to tell our audience on Spotify here, who are you? Who are you, dude? Who
Okay,
are
I'm
you?
Katherine Kristian, born and raised in Jakarta, Indonesia, and I'm currently in university studying business mathematics, which means I'm learning like I will be pursuing a career in actuary, which means I'll be counting risk and probability and statistics, which means I will work in finance, bank, or insurance. And I like sports, I like arts, I like everything. I like to read books, I like to watch movies, sing and everything like that. So I like a bit of everything. That's a little background of who I am.
So basically, we have a boss ass lady today in the podcast. Welcome.
Amen to that.
So as you can tell, she's taking business mathematics, like what she said. So there's a lot of things that are obviously invested to, like what you do and stuff. Like a lot of these things require really serious brain power, really intense brain power. And funny thing is that the amount of brain power you use in solving your mathematics refer to our topic today, toxic productivity culture. So we're gonna talk about toxic productivity. Before we dive into the questions, like, what do you think toxic productivity is, in like your opinion?
In my opinion, toxic productivity comes from someone trying to define what productivity is. In my opinion, productivity isn't something that can be defined. And when someone tries to define it, when someone tries to define, okay, productivity is waking up at 6 a.m., working out, cooking meals, and working from morning to night, and then sleeping for 7 hours, and that's productive for someone, definitely. But when someone tried to generalize the idea of productivity, I think that where toxic productivity comes, trying to define what productivity is.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, I think like the thing about toxic productivity is like the reason why I wanted to talk to you about this is, again, you're very productive. But like at the same time, I think people tend to overwork themselves in terms of
Yeah.
just working and career and in other aspect. And I feel like, we're both guilty of it in like different aspect and different areas of our life. So why does toxic productivity matter? That's the question I want to ask you.
I think toxic productivity, I feel like we don't even realize that we're living in in this world where it's so competitive, where everyone is constantly hustling, where everyone is constantly working their ass off and not realizing that they need to socialize with others, that they need to make friends, they need to spend time with their family, they need to play with their dog or something, because we're constantly hustling. Because we have to agree though, this world is overpopulated and we have to compete so we can reserve a spot in this world. So I think that's where
Ooh, I like that. Reserve a spot in this world. That's true.
I think that's where it matters. I think when we forget who when we lose ourselves because we're working too much, because we are constantly striving for straight A's, we're constantly trying to earn this much money, and then we forget ourselves. We lose ourselves in that road, in that path. We lose ourselves and we forget about who we are because we're just so motivated and dedicated into getting that straight A's or getting that much money. So I think I don't know what to say, because I think it's such an important awareness to raise toxic productivity. It's very important to let people our age, definitely our age is the age where we're working the most, because we know that we have the most time, we have the most energy. That's why we're working as hard as we can. But then we also forget that we only live once, that this life is not all about money and straight A's. It's not all about being on top of everything. It's also about making friends, being loved, loving others, being in a relationship, having a good relationship with your family and friends. So I think we have to stop the hustling. Like, it is good to a certain extent, but more than that, it is just negative. That's why it's called toxic productivity. Productivity in itself is a good thing, but when it's toxic, it's no good.
Yeah, that's true. And like as you were talking, I was kind of thinking because the things you said was more into like career aspect, like education and career. Like education and career, same thing, one thing leads to another.
True.
But what do you think about like, spending time with people? Those are productive things. Like those things bring value to us as human beings. But do you think to a certain extent it could be draining or meeting people in general? What's your boundary as a person? Like that you count as healthy and unhealthy? Like, do you think meeting the same person like every single day is healthy? Like, what do you think? What's your boundary? I just want to know a little bit about that
I
from
think it
you.
depends on the person that you meet. I think it depends on who you surround yourself with, because there are some people that after you meet them, you feel so drained and you feel so exhausted because all they can do is talk about themselves, or all they can do is talk about something that don't matter. But if you surround yourself with positive people and you talk about, I don't know what matters to you, example about woman empowerment or about God or about your family or something like that, and I feel like that's okay because it's knowledgeable, you are learning something from that, you're gaining something. But from toxic people, then the only thing you're gonna gain is negativity and overthinking. So I think it really depends on who you surround yourself with. Make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who are educated, not educated in school terms, but someone who has a lot of experience that can help you build, that can help you be a better person. So, in my opinion, I'm an extrovert. I'm a full extrovert and I love being with other people. But there are some people, have to be honest, there are some people where after I met them that I will feel so drained. And for an extrovert, like I feel like you're an extrovert too, right?
Yes.
And like, do you ever meet someone and you just feel so mentally and exhausted because you are just so sick of them? I
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
just to
yeah.
be honest, as an extrovert, I feel that sometimes.
I feel like I don't know. I think we've talked about this on our WhatsApp chat somehow. I'm pretty sure we did,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think I told you that I feel like being able to find good friends and good people are like
Mhm.
the people that you feel energized after to you talk to. Because in a
Yeah,
way, we can't really. You can tell someone is happy even though they don't tell you they're happy. You can tell
yeah,
someone is sad even if they don't tell you they're sad. And I feel like with people, it's about energy sometimes in a way, and it's about like their vibe because
yeah,
you know think of one person that you really admire that when they walk in the room like the whole room changes. So I
yeah,
feel like you and I are like the type of people who aspire to be more bringing that kind of vibe into the
yeah.
room rather than,
Ag-
do you know what I mean, rather than
yeah.
kind of
A self-centered
yeah,
who
yeah,
just
yeah,
talking about
a little bit
shallow stuff,
draining. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say okay shallow stuff, but I feel like people would be offended if I say shallow stuff.
But that's what I feel like. Like I feel like as an extrovert, when you surround yourself with people and you communicate with others, you will gain like energy. That's what being an extrovert means. But there are just some people who kills my energy after meeting them. So like surround yourself with the right people, guys. That can be productive in a way if you surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Because
true.
you're learning something, because you're gaining something.
Yeah. But like there's a counter argument to that too. Sorry, not to bring my TOKIB skills into the table, but I feel like there's also a counter argument to that because sometimes unhealthy people or toxic people, like they can still bring you the life lessons. I'm not necessarily saying that it's always the best thing to experience, but I think that they can bring so many life lessons. So I wouldn't say that it's toxic. I think it's just an aspect of growth, but I don't know. People have different opinions on that. So that's just my opinion as for that aspect.
I definitely agree though. I feel like I still meet, even though like as much as I despise it, those kind of people, I still meet them, just not as often, like I limit that. I limit that because I know how it can be bad for my mental health. So like I try to reduce the amount that I meet with people like that. But I still meet them. I'm still friends with them. Just probably not good friends, probably not like as close as like others. I definitely agree.
I think we were both pretty much on the same page on that
Yeah.
aspect. So I kind of want to touch a little bit on mental health. I know mental health is a very controversial and a sensitive topic, but I think being able to dive into mental health, like a lot of people talk about mental health, but
Mm.
what really is mental health and how does toxic productivity culture affects our mental health? Because like you
Yeah.
mentioned before, you were born and raised in Indonesia, Jakarta specifically. It's a really hustling city. Like people do things every day, every second. You can even see that from your dad and from your parents, from people around you. So how do you think toxic productivity affects this state of people's mental health?
Oh my God, it can affect in so many ways. Like productivity can affect someone's mental health positively because when you accomplished a lot of things, you feel proud, you feel that sense of like, I don't know, responsibility, and you're like, oh wow, I'm done doing this. But then toxic productivity will lead you to feeling guilt because you are trying to achieve the unachievable and you're trying so hard. And no matter how hard you work, you will not achieve it because it's not realistic. The goals that you're setting is not realistic. So I think the number one, I don't know, I feel like I don't know what mental health disease illness that you're going to get from toxic productivity, but definitely it can affect your mental health. Like I think it can even raise depression or social anxiety because you're locking yourself in your room, you're working too much, and then you forget to socialize. And we forget that as human, we are by nature, we are supposed to socialize. We're supposed to communicate with others. And when you forget that you're just locked in this four wall room and you forget that, you can have social anxiety, you can have the inability to communicate with others. I think it can even to a certain extent it can be self-harm because you're working so hard and you're working more than you should than the capacity that you have, and you're tired not just physically but you're tired mentally. You forget to eat, you forget to work out, you forget to take a walk, to breathe fresh air, so like it's not just mental health that's being affected, but it's also your physical well-being that's being affected. I feel like, I don't know, I'm not like a specialty on mental health, so I don't know exactly what kind of
Yeah,
illness.
I get what you mean
Yeah.
though. Like, I feel like I think what you're trying to imply is that being able to know yourself in a way where you know your capacity and like not
Know
overwork.
your limit.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree with you. But I think like all of us are kind of guilty to do that too, dude. Like if you think about it,
Yeah.
like we always tend to want to achieve more things in life because I feel like that's just normal human drive. But at the same time, it's like we forget that we're kind of like a system in our body that only is capable to do certain things at a certain level. So I think that really plays a big role in toxic productivity culture.
I think in the short term, it's actually really good because you're really driven, you're very determined, you're very motivated. But in the long term, that's where the danger comes. Like in the long term, it will make you feel exhausted, it will kill you. But I feel like in the short term, it's actually really good because you're really like striving for it. But in the long term, that's where you should watch out and be cautious. That's when you should start reflecting on what you're actually doing. Is this good for me? But in the short term, I think it's actually a great thing because like you're driven.
Yeah, that's true. And also, like, I actually, the guiding questions I send you, I also want to touch on a little bit of social media. So,
Mm.
the thing about being productive is like, it's good that, oh, you're showing people that you're productive in a way. And I think, like, to be honest, sometimes when, even as teenagers, both of us are guilty of this. When we study, like, we like to post, like, oh, like, I'm hanging out with my friends studying and stuff, which is a good thing. But how do you think toxic productivity play this role on social media? Because obviously, like, one perspective, it's a positive thing that like, whoa, you're motivating other people to be productive, but at the same time it's like so not have that perspective of growth, or just not even growth, just a normal perspective, and they're like, wow, like I'm really missing out, or like what is happening. So how do you think that plays a role on social media?
I think everyone knows that what people post on social media are highlights, but despite knowing that, they still think that that's the reality of other people's life. Like it isn't just in terms of toxic productivity, but in terms of like beauty standards, in terms of body image. Like we know that people only post from a certain angle and like after how many shots or after being photoshopped, but then we still believe that that is reality, that that is the beauty standard, that that is the body standard that we have to be. So I think social media, honestly, it does so many harm. It does so many harm than good, honestly. Seeing like the charts of mental health, I did a paper on mental health once, and we can see how drastic it has elevated ever since social media became a thing, ever since it boomed, social media. Probably in the last like 7 8 years, that's when it started to like really rise, social media. And I think like even in terms of like going to school, oh, you a friend of mine posted like, oh, I got accepted into UCLA, I got accepted into Harvard, I got accepted into like, I don't know what good school, Cambridge, Oxford. And in some way you have this nature of wanting to compete that you want to post that to. So sometimes what you're doing, you're being productive not because you want to be productive, but you're being productive because you see others being productive and you feel the same to want to post that. And after you post that, and probably you're probably not even doing it. You're setting your table, you take a picture of it, post it on Instagram, and then done. You're not even studying. You just want to show the world that you are studying, but you're not actually studying.
Are you guilty of that?
I've been guilty of that when I was younger. I feel
And
like I'm way more inactive now on Instagram. Like I don't post as often anymore. So
the thing about Instagram is that it's kind of hard for me not to post because I'm already doing this production thing,
yeah.
and it's like it's
Which I
not
think
a
is a good thing. Like what you're doing is an amazing thing, and I like salute you for doing this.
thank you. I don't know. I think there's a lot more to develop, but thank you for the compliment. I also think that continuing to what we were saying just now, I'm actually kind of guilty for this because I think sometimes I have so much tabs open on my computer that I don't necessarily focus on one thing. So whenever I'm like I'm studying and I'm like wait no, I'm going to do something else, and then like I don't end up doing anything, which is really bad. So what do you think in terms of that area? Do you think you're also guilty?
I think like I'm guilty of like I don't know like arranging my papers, making it look so aesthetic, and just take a picture with like a bomb ass filter in Instagram and posting it, or like Snapchat. I think that was the day of like Snapchat. I wasn't using Instagram as often. I don't think there were Instagram stories back then. Like I used Snapchat, so like arrange my paper. And then like people would reply to my story like "Semangat Erin," oh hustle girl or whatever, and I'm like I'm not even studying. I'm just posting for the sake of the post, not even actually studying, man. Guilty of that.
But I think you're speaking for like majority of people, so it's fine. And I don't even think it's only like when you study. I think when it comes to work, people do that too sometimes. And just following into this, like what do you think, how should we react to toxic productivity? Because when you're on the other side of the screen, as in you're not the person posting or you're not the person who's being productive in a way, and you find out that oh like your friends are overworking and all these things. So how do you think, what is the reaction that or the perspective or the mindset that we should have reacting to toxic productivity culture, or just seeing other people being productive and be like, maybe envy about it or
Stop comparing. That would solve so many problems in this world. To stop comparing with others. Stop comparing how you look. Stop comparing about how much money you have. Stop comparing about just everything in life, and it will solve so many problems in this world. But I have to say that it's easier said than done. Because like we always say that, don't compare yourself to her. You have what people post on social media are just their highlights and everything. We tell our friends that, but subconsciously we're doing that too. We're comparing ourselves too. And like, if you just stop comparing about what that person is doing and what you're just focus on you, what that person is doing, let it be what that person's doing, and let what you're doing be what you're doing. Like, don't easily get affected. I think that's my advice on like toxic productivity.
but that's the thing though, comparison culture is not a thing that we feel like we suddenly input. It's not something that we can control,
Yeah,
because
totally.
in a way, even in a household structure and family structure, or maybe school or workplace, everything in life, basically, there's always that subconscious comparison culture that people tend to put on other people, or situation tends to put on situations. Do you get what I mean? So
Yeah,
how do you
definitely.
think we should
Deal with.
respond to it? Yeah. What's the kind of mindset that maybe personally you have had through the years that have helped you cope through it and be okay with it?
Oh my God, this is such a hard question. Um, okay, can I just answer about how I stay productive and how I stay productive and not toxically? Like just how I
Yeah, like not toxically compare yourself. Yeah, sure.
like for me, like I just focus on doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm a student. My obligation as a student is to study, to get the grades that I need to get to pass, or even probably higher than that if I can. So I stick to that. And sometimes, yeah, I do want to work out because I mean, who doesn't want to work out? But then I add that to my list, not as a priority. Like my priorities as a student is to study, and of course to spend time with my family. I'm really close to my family, so spending time with my family is an everyday to-do list. I have to do it every day. But for like working out, like if I don't have the time, then I'm not going to force myself to work out, because is it an essential? No, it's not something that I will die of if I don't work out. But then for school, my parents have paid a lot of money for being in school. And I feel like I am obligated. That's the least I can do, is to just study, to work hard as I can in at school, and to succeed in the future. So for me, it's just to focus on what you're supposed to be doing and adding probably one or two things that are not what you're supposed to be doing, but what you want to do. But no, don't add that to like your priority list. Like, know your priorities, like know what you're supposed to be doing right now. Focus on that.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned priority lists. I think that's
Yeah.
one thing, even personally for me, to be genuinely honest, I struggle with. Priority list is because there's so many things, when you say like
Yeah.
spending time with your family, as I know you guys have 4 members in your family, your
Yeah.
brother,
It's
your
only
mom,
four.
and your dad. So when you say spending time with your family, like to I know it's an overthinking thing, but like to what extent is spending time with your family? Is it just like with your brother hanging out on the couch and just watching, or is it like grocery shopping with your mom? It's like different things that take different things that kind of centers to one aspect of spending time with family.
Spending minimum 1 hour with them every day. It can be just because we have dinner together, not really dinner together. We just accompany my dad eating because he goes home very late every day. And like we just accompany him eat in like the dining table, and we just spend like an hour there talking about, not necessarily even talking about what we did in that day, but just what we want to talk about. And I don't know, like honestly, my parents and my brother are the only one that can really kind of like boost my mood. They're my mood boosters, in my opinion. Every time I'm feeling stressed, every time I'm feeling overwhelmed with school and work and everything like that, then I feel way better after I hang out with them. That's how I know that's being productive. It can just be like a 20-minute hug with my mom and dad, being in their bed for like spending like 20 minutes in their room, doing nothing, just kind of like spending time together, really just spending time together, um, either in their bed or in the couch or something like that. It doesn't really matter how I spend time with them, but after that, how I feel after that, that's how I know, like, okay, that's enough. That's a good time spent, a well spent time. And then okay, then that's it. And I will go back to doing my work and doing my homework and everything like that. So it changes every single day. It changes every single day, like what I do with my family. Sometimes I go shopping with my mom. Sometimes I go driving with my dad. Sometimes I go eat with my brother. So it changes every day. But most of the time, it's just an hour meal or like spending time in their room. Mostly spending time in their room, doing nothing.
So for I know what you mean, but sometimes I get so, when you're all on your phone and then you're just like in the room trying to make conversation and you're like, I don't like ngapain coba, like, I know it's like I think it's just being with each other's company, like physically, that makes everything.
Yeah, physically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially don't you think? Like we don't spend as much time with other people physically that you appreciate spending time
Physical
physically more
interaction.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
physical interaction.
definitely.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel
I
like
get
it's
what you
not
mean.
just with the family. Like sometimes I'm so caught up. I'm the kind of person that when I'm focused on doing something, I will forget about everything else. And I will forget chatting my friends. I will forget I have a boyfriend, so I forget chatting my boyfriend. I forget being with my parents. And like it's a bad thing. It can be a good thing. Like I'm a driven person. That's a good thing. But leaving other things, like leaving my parents, my friends, my boyfriend, that's a bad thing. Like I have to that's the hard thing, I think. Like productive is not just about hustling in work, but being able to manage your time properly, being able to spend time with some people, but still being able to do your work. I think that is the real term of like productivity, in my opinion.
But that's really
That's the
cool
hard.
because that's the one thing I actually really admire about you. And I've never said this, but I think you're very focused on one thing. Like I'm so distracted. You are so focused and on one thing that like, you really put all your soul and your whatever to it. But it's like, I'm not saying I'm not focused on one thing, but I get so easily distracted and I have like multiple things on my mind that I can't necessarily learn. No, I can't necessarily, sometimes I can't digest which one comes first, which I mean, of course, normal people also struggle with that. But I think for you, you've kind of got that part handled. So, making a priority list for you is so much easier than some people.
Yeah. I think I'm someone like I get really bad anxiety when I submit things late or when I come to an event late. Like I have a birthday party of my friends and then I come like 5 minutes late, and I will feel the worst anxiety. I will literally jitter and I will shake. I will feel like absolute crap if I come late to something. That I think that's why like it's quite easier for me to write a priority list, because my priority list depends on like the due date. So like I have this to-do list in my laptop and I just type like what I need to submit by what date, what date, what date. And like I don't know, I think that's why it's easier for me, because I hate submitting things late. Like I just hate it. And I would say that I'm quite like a fast worker. I could type an essay in like 1 hour or 2 hours if I really wrap my mind around it. But I think what you see in me, I think what you see is just like, as I said, social media highlights. I don't think I'm that focused as well. Like there are some days where I'm just like where I want to do some work and I end up like I don't know, like watching, or I end up trying to make a cover that I don't end up posting because I don't have the confidence to do that. I feel like okay, wait, how do you do that? I'm always on my room. I'm always in my room because I'm not a good time man. Like I can't manage my time, you know. Like I'm just always in my room.
It's not like I got my time management perfect too.
But then like you're like juggling around 100 different things, and I'm just juggling like what, school and like family and friends.
I know, but that's the thing. I don't have that much focus as you do. So that's the like, that's why I can't, sometimes I kind of do feel like I'm trapped in toxic productivity. I'm not even gonna lie. In terms of like social and like work aspect, everything that I do, sometimes it feels like it's not that it's toxic. I feel like it's a good thing that I'm doing work, but I don't feel like I don't know. I'm lacking so much in myself that I don't view myself as the way what you said just now, which was very nice, and I'm very grateful.
I think that's it's a good thing, you know, like to reflect on like what you've been doing. On like I think that's how I kind of like feel accomplished. It's just like I look at myself and not really look at myself literally. I mean, like I review on what I've been doing, you know. Okay, I try to limit the amount of tasks that I do in a day, especially when it's like university related, because it drains the heck out of you. Like doing like calculus and doing statistics and probability, it drains the heck out of you, you know? Like, and I'm not like a genius, and like, so like I still have to really work hard on that. So like I try to really limit myself on that. Like, I think you should do that too. Like, you should look at yourself and like, oh, I'm doing this podcast and I'm doing school and I'm teaching my nieces and nephews and I'm really close to my parents and everything like that. And that's something you should be really proud of, because not everyone can multitask in that way, in a way, you know, or like even have the confidence to publish a podcast. That's how you can get further, is by realizing how far you've come. Then you can go further. I think that's my advice for you, like to realize how much you've been doing.
Thank you. I really needed to hear that, but at the same time, it's like, sometimes it's like when I tell you like, hey, Erin, you look really nice today. And I genuinely mean that. Like your hair looks very neat. Like, look at me, I'm in a bun. Like I'm in my room and I'm in a bun. And sometimes it's like, how much does words really add value to you? Because it's like when I tell you that, you might say thank you, Nat, but like you might not even believe that because that's like your perception. Do you get what I mean? So I'm telling like, even if you said that, it's not that it's not nice. Of course, it's so nice. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. But it's like at the end of the day, it's like, the conflict in your mind that's like determining how the value and the worth and the perception you put on yourself. Also, like relating back to the toxic productivity culture, I feel like we tend to, the perception of certain things in our head is not necessarily quote unquote right. So I think finding the balance in between.
I feel the least productive that I've been in like 3 years, probably 2 years, because of this online thing. Because like I haven't been doing anything, you know, like I'm not training for anything. I'm not really studying for anything because I'm just doing my homework and everything. Just like every test is open book. So like I don't really need to study. And I've been kind of like killing myself for that, for like how I've been kind of like feeling very unproductive. Honestly, like you kind of contacted me in a really wrong time because I am feeling the least productive in a really long time.
I think
Honestly though, like, seriously.
But I think being able to realize that itself is healthy. Do you get what I mean? So
Yeah.
or maybe before quarantine, you've been living like a very busy, unfocused life that now that you start to realize more of your priorities and like the things that you can organize in a way. Because I think you're the type of person who like, it's so important for you to get things right. And like, it's so important for you, not just for the public, but for yourself to know that your priorities are your family, your community, and some people and your work and whatsoever. But like at the same time, you also think that being able to juggle all of this, you use the energy you have. So other like whatever energy there is later, you like save whatever that's not important for for later, not for now. So that's the one thing that I see when I was thinking about this podcast and doing it with you, like this episode. So I think like I want you to share a little bit on that. Like how do you manage to do that though? To be able to really give your energy to one thing and not really go.
Oh, to know what my priority lists are.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
yeah.
is that what you mean? I just do what makes me feel good. At the end of the day, it's your life. So like do what makes you feel good, you know? Like honestly, being productive makes me feel so good and accomplished. Like there was a phase where I was really productive. And I think it was like 2 weeks ago before I was overwhelmed with all of these projects because it's coming to my midterms. I think like during that 2 week period of 2 weeks, I worked out every single day, cooked every single one of my meal, cleaned my room every single day, and like woke up at 8 a.m. every day, started my day with like doing work, like literally studying for like 2 or 3 hours, and then ending the day with also doing 2 or 3 hours of works. And that is outside of classes. So like I study outside of class. And now honestly, I am so caught up in projects. So like right now my priority list are kind of scrambled all over the place because there are so many things to do and I don't have the time. I feel like I don't have the time to do that. But I think my advice is to just do what makes you feel good. Obviously, doing things that you need to do, like obviously doing your work and everything like that. But make sure that you're doing it that in a way that it makes you feel good. Try to like for me, I like to do my homework while watching something. That makes me feel like when I do my homework, I'm not that stressed out. I'm not really concentrated. Not really that not concentrated, but I'm enjoying doing my homework. I try to enjoy my things. I think that's my only advice I can give is to really enjoy what you're doing. Especially during this pandemic, I think you realize how valuable your life is. I mean, how many people we've lost during this pandemic. It's crazy. So like really value your life. Make sure that everything you're doing, even though it's something dreadful, make sure that you still find a way to enjoy it. Find a positive, find a light in every like darkness because there is always a light in every darkness. I feel like that's my advice. Even to you, like when you're doing this podcast and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling tired, like I don't know, like probably talking to other people, you're an extrovert, you're probably learning something, like that could be a light in the darkness. That's what I mean. Like when I study, I like to just hum or sing or do something to make sure that I'm not stressed out, to make sure that I'm not panicked when I'm doing this stuff. Like the funny thing is, okay, the funny thing is my dad is teaching me how to golf currently, and like I suck, and like the only time I can hit properly is when I'm completely relaxed, when I'm always listening to music. I love listening to music. When I'm listening to the music that I like and singing along with it, that's the only time I can hit the ball really well and far. So like I don't know, that somehow kind of like makes me reflect on my everyday life. When I do things the way I want to, the way I like it, that's when the best results, that's when I have the best outcomes. As I said, like while I'm doing homework, I take some time to scribble on the paper because I love to draw, or like take some time to hum and sing because I love that. And because of that, I'm not really stressed up. I'm not really occupied into my work. I still can enjoy doing it. And when you enjoy doing something, it's way more efficient. That's what I learned in business, at least. Like it's way more efficient when you're enjoying to do your stuff. And the outcome, it's gonna be way better. You're gonna have way better grades and everything because you're enjoying it. So you don't mind spending more time on it. I think that's how I managed to juggle things and to like make my priorities. So
I understand what you mean, but like it's not as easy like how we put it in this episode particularly. And like we've been talking for a long time, and like I know this is very insightful. I hope that people actually listen to this because the episode is more, it's more towards Gen Z and millennials, right? So about just
agree.
toxic productivity in a way. Do you have any advice or just one quote that you feel like you've lived by for a long time that you would like to share? And
No, I don't think I have a quote that I live by particularly in because our life changes so fast. The stage of life that I'm in, it changes so often. So I don't have like one particular code. But then like one thing that my dad told me once that struck me like lightning is the reason why I want to get organized. The reason why I want to have plan for the future, basically being productive, is because my dad once told me like if you just go with the flow, that's how a lot of people are like I'm just gonna go with the flow. I'm gonna see how it goes and go with the flow. Water goes with the flow. water streams everything just like how it's supposed to. And then my dad told me, do you realize where water is where water is always located and found? It's always beneath us, it's always in the bottom, it's always in the ground. And that's what's going to happen if you go with the flow. If you don't have a plan, if you don't live by a plan, then that's how you're going to be. You're always going to be below everyone else. And then my mom told me that even when you have a plan, it's not always going to work out as you want it to. And how if you don't have a plan? Apalagi kalau nggak punya plan. That's what I mean. I think that's something that really kind of like made me want to get my things together. Like that's how I want to really just live. That's the motto how I live by. Like I always have a plan for everything. But even though the things don't turn out as planned, I'm okay with it as long as I know that I tried my best and I try to live by that plan. But even if it don't work out, then I just believe that God has better things in store for me. So I know that's not really related to toxic.
No, that's actually that's good. I like the analogy, but like I also feel like, do you have like an analogy where like maybe about success or like productivity that like you live by?
What do you think? Do you have a motto? Share it with me first. So like I have like something to think about. What do you think about toxic productivity?
I always said this to myself, but we always think that when we cannot do something, because I feel like I'm the type of person who, whenever people actually think I cannot do something, I have the urge to even prove them more. I don't, it's kind of bad sometimes, like in terms of like, it's kind of bad, like in terms of, in specific in specific times it could be a negative aspect, but I always tell myself, like especially like I used to struggle a lot with health. I told myself you have to train your mind higher than how you feel, because on a daily basis humans live by emotion, whether they know that or like subconsciously, it's like a subconscious action. So I think that my motivational drive is that regardless of how I feel is how I feel. Not disregarding the feeling. I'm just saying that temporary some momentums are very temporary. Like how you feel about some momentums, they're just temporary. So I have to be able to see my higher self or speak in my higher self to be able to say, like, no, you can do it. Like you really can do it. You just have to believe you can do it. Because I do believe that I can do it. So sorry, it's
Positive affirmation.
yeah. I'm not trying to sound like, oh my God, I can do everything. No, I'm just saying like, I also don't come from a place of like, oh, I'm so confident. I'm just coming from a place saying that, no, I can do it. I really can. If I really try, I can. And it's so funny because the thing is, I think it's also because both of us, I mean, we're related family wise, I guess. So I think like our family, like they've always had the mindset of like growth. They've always had the mindset of like, being able to develop better, not saying
you can.
yeah, there you go. So I think also a lot from our parents. And I live with a mindset where this sounds very ridiculous. There was like a Golden Globe Award this year. I was like scrolling through my phone. I was like, I bet I can get a Golden Globe Award if I tried. It's
this is like what's so amazing about you is like I don't know, like you're not scared to do it. Like sometimes I'm just kind of like planning things and not really doing it, while you're the action kind of person. Like, okay, I want to write a song. You wrote a song, and like, wow, that is drop dead amazing and freaking like so cool. Because like I don't think like, not that saying that I can write a song. I mean, like if I have the talent of writing a song, if I have like the talent of writing a song, and I don't think I would publish it. I don't think I have the confidence, or even like to just tell my parents. I don't think I have like the confidence to do that. Like I just feel like, oh no, I'm not good enough. I'm not gonna be enough. I'm not gonna be. I think that's something I'm working on. Like,
see, that's the perception of self.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think like what I wanted to ask you was like that's just not my motto, but the perspective that I'm trying to live by, that I can gain as long as I come from a place of abundance and growth. So for you yourself, like what is a motto that you live by that helped you grow until this point, reaching everything you've reached?
I think for me is like to not dwell on your mistakes. I feel like we as human beings, we made a lot of mistakes. I have to be honest. Like there was a phase in my life where I was probably the mean girl at school that people hated. And yes, I do agree that I was at some point I was that kind of person. Like I was just like kind of like talking about it with like my old friends that we tend to be like the mean girls at school. Not really mean. I've never bullied anyone. Okay, don't get me wrong. I've never bullied
Superior,
anyone. I'm not
superior.
that kind of person. Yeah, I don't know, like I kind of knew that people knew me at school and I kind of use that as an advantage and everything like that. And like I feel like 15-year-old me looking at me now, I would be so proud of who I am and like completely shocked because like that is not who I was. I used to be this confident person who walked down the hall and just kind of like, okay, I'm owning it, girl. I'm owning this um walk and everything like that. And now I'm just kind of like the most insecure person. And I don't think like I think it's kind of like a good thing too. Like it makes me more humble. It's more
Aww,
humbling. Not really insecure in that way, but more like humbling.
you
So
shouldn't
like
be.
I think for me it's just like to never really dwell on your mistakes because if I don't go through that phase in my life, then I wouldn't be where I am right now. Even
Yeah.
though like there are people who probably hate me because I was like that, then you know what? Let them hate me. I try to apologize, and if they don't want to accept my apology, then I'm sorry. But I have to move on with my life. I can't dwell on it all the time because
And
if I
I
keep
like
on
that
dwelling,
perspective, which I sometimes don't have.
like for me, like okay, like I think like something that I always tell myself is like sometimes if you dwell into the past so much, whether it be a past, a person, or a mistake, it's like sticking into a wall. And God has something for you in the far future that you can't reach because you're stuck to the wall, like so like you have to let it go. You have to let go of things, and letting go is okay. It can be letting go of a friendship because you have grown apart, which is okay, which is not normalized in our culture because it's always seemed like, oh, why are they not friends anymore? Are they what happened? Like I feel like people are always like that. But it's okay to grow apart. I mean, I grew apart from my childhood best friend, and I'm not saying that that's completely okay. Like I still talk to them, but I'm not necessarily best friends with them because my 6-year-old self and my current 19-year-old self,
They're
we
not
are
the same
two
person.
complete
Yeah,
different people.
I
So
agree.
like it's okay to grow apart. In my opinion, it's letting go is not a bad thing. And as I grow older, the more I realize about that letting go is not a bad thing. In fact, it can be a good thing. It can mean that you're growing. Don't
Yeah.
let go of everything, but I mean, it's a good thing to let go of things, some things.
Yeah, I
Let the
agree.
past be the past. Like, let it be the past and let it stay in the past and focus on the future or focus on the present, in fact. Like, that's my motto in life. Just forget about everything, live life. I think, in my
That's
opinion,
really
it's that
good.
important.
I feel like this conversation is very insightful. I find it insightful. I hope you do too.
Yeah, it is actually really interesting because, like, I never even think about toxic productivity until you reached out to me and, like, at first I was kind of like doubting of wanting to be in this podcast because like, what do I know about productivity or let alone toxic productivity? Like I've never even heard of that. Honestly, I've never even heard of that before. And then I did my research because I want to sound like I'm well educated. So like I did my research and
You are
everything.
well educated. Please don't ever say that.
And then like I kind of just looked at the back end of my life and I realized how my life has been basically toxic productivity. Like that's how much, and like I didn't even know that before because like I didn't know what that was. I was like, oh my God, the podcast hasn't even started yet. And it's already so insightful. Like just based on the title, it hasn't even started yet when you contacted me. And I'm like, and I practiced it. Okay. I practiced this podcast with my boyfriend last night when we were calling. I was like,
Oh gosh.
think toxic productivity is. And I'm like, and I kind of like searched in Google what toxic productivity is, and then I decided to stay with my own answer.
Which is the best? The best answer is from your own perspective.
Oh, this has been so much fun though.
Thank you so
So
much,
refreshing.
Ian, for joining me. I really appreciate you. I really do find this conversation very insightful, getting to know you more as a person. I really hope everybody who's listening really enjoys this episode, this podcast episode. Yeah, thank you, Erin, for being on this episode.